The Ontario legislature returns next week following an extended winter break. It will also mark the beginning of one MPP's fight to try to get her voice back.
Now, I'm trying to move safely and the media
Make space. Make space.
You may remember this from last October. Sarah Jama surrounded by media after she was removed from the NDP caucus and censured in the legislature. It happened after she released a statement on October 10th calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war and an end to, quote, all occupation of Palestinian land.
Jama has taken a number of unilateral actions that have broken and undermined the collective work of your Ontario NDP official opposition. We tried everything that we possibly could and gave her lots of opportunities, but unfortunately here we are.
Well, that caucus expulsion stands, but Jama has filed for a judicial review into her censure in the legislature, and the first hearing on that is set to happen next week. She's also tabling motions in the legislature calling for a boost to the Ontario Disability Benefit. Sarah Jama became an independent MPP for Hamilton Centre on October 23rd, and she joins me now. Sarah Jama, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you're going to be allowed to table some motions when Queen's Park resumes sitting, but you're still facing this censure from the legislature that forbids you from speaking until you apologize. How do you advance these motions? How do you do your work as an MPP if you're still under censure and can't speak?
Thank you for having me on today. To clarify, I can still speak at committee, I can still table motions, and I can still vote. I have been doing a lot of work locally in my riding. So far, since we've opened our office, we've served 4,000 people. We're still all out on the doors talking to constituents every day. And I plan to collaborate with anybody who's willing to collaborate with me on moving forward with the motions that we're crafting with community. So we've tabled 2, for example, and the official opposition disability critic has already confirmed that she will be supporting these motions. So it's about finding folks with similar values who are willing to collaborate. Whether it's an independent or through the official opposition, I'm just willing to put my head down and work with whoever wants to work together to put forward these important motions on reforming social assistance across Ontario.
So the official opposition, that is the New Democrats. That is your now former party, as you were kicked out of the caucus by Leader Merritt Stiles when this controversy was happening in October. How are you able to work with them? Is it just on this issue? How is the relationship with them right now?
I think it's fine. Like, at the end of the day, we all have similar values, and while we don't agree on everything all the time, obviously there are issues. I'm focused on putting my head down and making sure that I can get motions passed that people care about in my riding. So far, what's been identified are air quality issues, rent control issues, and disability issues, as well as taking on the landlord-tenant board with Acorn Hamilton in my riding. So I will be working really hard to craft these motions to table them, and whoever wants to pick them up to move them, I more than welcome it.
So you can speak at committee and you can still vote, but you cannot speak during the proceedings in the legislature until you retract the statement you made about the Israel-Hamas conflict and apologize in the legislature. Do you plan to do those things, or are you going to live and try to find a way to function under the conditions of this censure?
So the truth is, we're under a majority conservative government that doesn't tend to listen to many people outside of their own circle regardless. Sure, I won't be able to debate. Most of the time we're debating looking at empty chairs across the aisle. I plan to put my head down and get motions passed in the ways that I can and vote on key issues that are important to my riding. But I will not be retracting my statement on the issue of Palestine, right? There's genocide going on right now as we're speaking, as we're doing this interview. And so I think my statement speaks for itself. The issue is before the courts. So the censure is being fought through a judicial review, and that's happening right now. And so we'll see what happens.
So the judicial review hearing, the first hearing on that is next week, as I understand it. Is that right, Ms. Jama? What do you hope comes out of that? How quickly do you hope this will be resolved?
I don't think it will be a super quick process, but either way, I'm hoping that history will absolve me and that this censure will be lifted.
On that issue, setting aside the merits of your statement and the merits of their position, the idea of a majority government using that majority to silence an opposition member of any legislature, of any parliament. What are your thoughts on that? This is the thing that struck me about this, that whatever you feel about the conflict happening in Gaza, in Israel, in Palestine, in the Middle East right now, it's the idea of being censured is one thing, the House expressing its disapproval, being silenced is quite another. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I definitely agree with you. There are some local residents of Hamilton Center who've launched a campaign called Restore the Voice to try to bring attention to that very issue that you're raising. Doug Ford and his government decided to take away an elected representative's voice in the House simply because they didn't like my statement on Twitter and Instagram and proceeded to participate in 8 hours of debate, likening me to terrorist sympathizers, which is not true. And as I said, there is a genocide. As much as we can not talk about that elephant in the room, the genocide is happening. And so my statement was factually correct. It was online. It wasn't something that was said in the House itself, and I was censured for that, which is really, really unprecedented. If you look at past cases for censorship, it's usually used to police behavior in Queen's Park. This is outside of that jurisdiction. So again, I'm interested to see what the courts will say about that. And I definitely do think this censure was out of bounds, and that's why I'm continuing to fight it.
So you're seeking the judicial review of the censure. You have served Doug Ford with a cease and desist letter and threatened to sue him for defamation for comments he made saying you had a long and well-documented history of anti-Semitism. That's the Premier's words, not mine. And the fallout of all of this led to your expulsion from the NDP caucus. So you can't speak, you don't have a party, and there's all of these potential legal processes going on. But it sounds like you don't regret anything here.
There are 30,000 people who died. When I put up my statement, I waited 3 days because I could tell what was about to happen. 30,000 people, if not more, are dead because of all of our failures to call for a ceasefire. So I refuse to take blame for putting up a statement calling for a ceasefire when that's what everybody should be doing. I don't know what else to say about that topic. We're 4 months out and still speaking on it. What I can say is my riding is very supportive. We have a new independent riding association that has raised over $35,000 already without really a financial push. There's 60 active members on our new independent riding association. We're out knocking doors. We're talking to people day to day. And I will continue to be in the Legislative Assembly and do what I can to push forward key issues. That's why I got elected. That's why I ran. I think it's important to have people in that place with proper lived experience and representation of key issues. And I come from a working class city, which is in the poorest riding in all of the province, Hamilton Center, right? And so who better to represent the city than someone who's from the people? You know, my people send me there. I'm going to continue to do the job the best that I can. And people in my riding support a free Palestine. So we can keep talking about, am I sorry, am I not sorry? But looking back, there's not much else I would have done differently.
Okay, no, and I wasn't intending for my question to be you should regret it. You're totally entitled to take your position on this. There are very strong opinions on this. I was just making sure I understood exactly where you were. And I just wonder, because it is an unusual and extraordinary thing to have an elected member of a legislature silenced by a vote of the legislature for taking a political position like this. And I know you're doing the judicial review approach. You're not going to comply with the remedy that was spelled out in the censure for you to retract and apologize. Is there a political solution here, I wonder? You say you're working with your old party, the NDP, on advancing the motions. Is there a way to find if they would table a motion to reconsider the censure, to have another vote on this and see if the temperature has dropped on this, feelings have changed, and maybe this could be resolved that way? Is there any avenue there, or do you just persist as best you can while being silenced on the floor of Queen's Park?
For sure. I plan to try and exhaust all remedies available to me through the courts and outside of the courts as well to try to get rid of the censure. But it's a matter of principle on the government side too. Do they stand by what they were saying in the censure debate? I was likened to being a terrorist sympathizer and called out of my name numerous times. So do they stand behind their purpose of the censure? I'm more than willing and happy to have those conversations. I've already reached out to House Leader Kalandra about my right to be appointed on a standing committee, and I'm waiting to hear back. So I don't know where all of these conversations will go, but I'm going to exhaust every remedy available to me. And yeah, I haven't just reached out to the official opposition. I've also reached out to every single independent member in the Legislative Assembly. I'm going to do what I can to collaborate to move key issues forward that are important to my riding, while also not sacrificing principle and truth. And the truth is there are 30,000 people who've been killed so far since I put out that statement in the state of Palestine.
The life of an independent politician, though, is a pretty lonely one, just as a final point. I mean, I know you say you've got support there in your riding in Hamilton. Do you doubt your ability to be effective with the limitations that are being placed on you by this punishment?
I don't think so, no. We're not even back at the House yet, and I've already tabled 2 motions. I've launched a strategic plan. We haven't really gotten into talking about the 2 motions, but it's crafted by community, and I have way more in store in terms of what I'm going to be putting forward. And I'm going to use my platform like I always have to continue to amplify key issues that are important to folks in my riding and across Ontario. And sure, maybe it's a lonely process to be an independent, but it would have been more lonely if I didn't speak the truth and I watched the genocide unfold and I didn't listen to the emails and the calls coming in from people in my riding with family under the rubble who were saying somebody has to say something, amidst almost every single politician at that time saying Israel had the right to defend itself. So I'm okay to be with my lonely self and my principles as an independent, and we'll see what happens. And I hope everybody is willing to collaborate, and I'm keeping that door open.
Ontario MPP Sarah Jama, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.